Good afternoon, everybody, and we appreciate your, taking the time today and being present to our account statement webinar. My name is Monica Betsy, and I'm the Assistant Deputy Commissioner over the Fiscal Department and Office of Child Support Services. We don't have much time. It's only 1 hour, and we want to make a good use of it. So without further delay, I will just let you know that in this presentation, we'll give you an overview on the account statement that we provide for court hearings. We'll cover the basics and also bring to your attention the importance of remarks in an account statement. There are several out-of-ordinary scenarios that we want to emphasize, and hopefully you'll leave with a better understanding at the end of the presentation. So I'll just go over the outline. We were going to have the account statement basics being presented by Eselin Picawinto, the Executive Director of Fiscal. The key challenges, multiple statements, and additional scenarios will be presented by Kevin Harchi, the Director of Account Statement and Audit Unit. And we will hopefully have the 15 minutes at the end for the Q&As. So without further delay, I'm passing it to Eselin.
Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eselin Picawinto. I'm the Executive Director at Fiscal Operations. So today, during the presentation, we will discuss the basics of an account statement. We do acknowledge that most of you know the basics, but there might be some new support magistrates and other participants that don't. So we will review the basics of the account statement before moving into some of the more complicated scenarios. So there are some basic financial definitions that will be mentioned in today's presentation. The first one is paid. Paid is the total amount of money that is received on an account. Due. Due is the total amount of money owed on an account under the terms of the several court orders that were entered. Apply. Apply represents the total amount of money that has been received and credited to the account to satisfy the obligation. We also will discuss disbursed, which is the total amount of money that has been sent to all beneficiaries on an account. The beneficiaries could be the custodial parent, CP, or the Department of Social Services. We'll refer to it as DSS. Next is the overpaid. Overpaid is money that is received on the account that exceeds the total net due on the account. And last but not least, over-disbursed is the amount that is disbursed which exceeds the amount that was paid on the account. We'll start this presentation by going over a breakdown of an account statement section by section. So section 1 reflects the support obligation information on the account statement. Section 2 reflects the payments that are received on the account. Section 3 reflects the delinquent amount on the account. And Section 4 reflects the remarks entered to explain the charges, the adjustment, and any pertinent calculation and information on the account statement. Before we break down each section of an account statement, we would like to highlight the first 2 pages of each account statement. The pages are the certification page and the account statement transmittal page. The certification page certifies that the support payments received and disbursed are accurate and maintained pursuant to Title 6A of the Social Services Law. The account statement transmittal page reflects demographic information of the custodial parent, CP, the non-custodial parent, NCP, and the dependent children that we have on our system. We would like to ask that if you notice that any information is incorrect or is outdated, such as the addresses or the employer information, that you please notify OCSS so that we can make the applicable changes in our system. At the top of each page in the account statement, there will be a header. The header lists the statement date, the parties, and any relevant court information, the review period, the case ID, and case type. Regarding the review period begin and end date are important to note, as the account statement will reflect charges and payments that are made within this period. Regarding the case type, the TA status reflects the public assistance status of the dependent child. The case type can either be non-PA, PA, or former PA. So the first two examples that you see are headers from a single beneficiary case with TA status non-PA. The first one is non-PA, and the second one is PA, meaning the dependent children are active on public assistance. If the case is a single beneficiary case, you will find the grand total due and the delinquent amount information on page 3 and 4 of the account statement. In the third example, which is at the bottom of your page, you see the header of a split beneficiary case, which reflects a former PA status. If the case is a split beneficiary case, the account statement will have an additional page, which is page number 5, and it notes in the header of page 5 that it is a split case. This additional page will reflect the total current support, the total past support, and the grand total that is owed to the custodial parent, as well as the allocation of the delinquent amount between the custodial parent and the Department of Social Services. So here we see section 1. Section 1 is the support obligation information. This section is made up of two parts. Part A reflects the total amount of current support owed by the non-custodial parent. It also shows the support obligation amount and the number of support obligations as set forth by the court orders. Part B reflects the total amount support arrears that is owed by the non-custodial parent. This includes retroactive support, arrears set, and any money judgment that is entered by the court. When you add both the current support order and the total support arrears, you will get the grand total due on the account. This is the total amount of current and past child support currently owed by the non-custodial parent before any payments are deducted. Section 2 reflects the payments that are made on the account. This section reflects the amount of money we receive on an account during the review period. In general, the review period begins the day we start charging the current support and ends the day the account statement was created. As I mentioned before, the review period is noted in the header of the account statement. When we look at the payment types, payments represent the sum of all payments received and recorded in the system within the review period. You will find a payment history attached to the end of the account statement. Adjustments that are adjustments that fiscal staff has performed on the account and recorded in the system. When it comes to the other adjustment and other adjustment to the petitioner, when upon review, there might be certain manual adjustments that were made by fiscal staff that are not captured in the adjustment to accurately reflect the net due reflected in the system. Note that these adjustments are always accompanied by a remark that are entered in section 4, and we will discuss this scenario in more detail later into the presentation. If the support magistrate or attorney or whoever wants to know all payments that are received on an account, a separate payment history should be requested. This payment history will reflect all payments that are made by the NCP from inception of the case to date. Gross rate is the sum of all payments received during the review period. amount refunded reflects any money that is refunded to the NCP on this account. Since 2000, any refund that we make to the NCP will be issued on a separate refund account and therefore will not be reflected on here. But cases that we billed before 2000, any amount refunded to the NCP will be reflected here in Section 2C. The gross paid, the net paid will be the gross paid minus the amount that was refunded to the NCP. Section 3 shows the amount that is delinquent. This section is where you will find the total amount of child support owed or overpaid by the NCP. The grand total due is the amount that is reflected in Section 1 minus the net paid, which is reflected in Section 2B, and that will equal the delinquent amount. Thus, the amount that is owed by the NCP. So this is an example of an account statement with a TA status of non-PE, meaning the children are not active on public assistance. In this case, there's only one beneficiary, and that will be the custodial parent. As you see in this case, the delinquent amount is $9,373.19, and all of this is owed to the custodial parent. So here, we will see an example of an account statement with a TA status of public assistance, meaning that the dependent children are active on public assistance. Here, the beneficiary is the Department of Social Services. So all of the $4,545.39, all of it is owed to the Department of Social Services. When the TA status is PA, we will make sure to add the public assistance history of the dependent children in the remarks, as well as the public assistance, if any, of the non-custodial parent, to ensure that the order will be entered that is in alignment with his ability to pay. So here we have an example of an account statement with two beneficiaries, meaning the CP and the Department of Social Services. We see the delinquent amount, and also when it is the TE status is a former PA, again, we will make sure to enter the public assistance history of the child, of the dependent children, in the remark section. To your right, you'll see the additional page that I referred to previously, page 5. And here, we will see a breakdown of what is owed to the CP and what is owed to the Department of Social Services. So this additional page 5, in the header, it will mention that it is a split case. Split meaning that the net due will be split between the custodial parent and the Department of Social Services. So also on this 5th page, we see that the total current support, the total past support, and the grand total due that is owed to the CP is mentioned on this 5th page, as well as the allocation of the delinquent amount between the custodial parent and DSS. So what I just mentioned, if you see to your right, we highlighted that it is a split case. It says yes. And to the bottom, we see the amount delinquent. So here the delinquent amount was $6,400 and some change. So that is allocated between the petitioner, the custodial parent, $4,000, and $2,400 to the Department of Social Services. So let's look at these examples close up. The first one is a single beneficiary case. So therefore, there's only one payee, either the custodial parent or the Department of Social Services. And this information can be found on page 4. Towards the bottom is a split beneficiary case where we see that the total delinquent amount of $6,485 is allocated between the custodial parent and DSS. Again, $4,085 to the custodial parent and $2,400 to the Department of Social Services. Thank you. I will pass it along to Kevin Hodge.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ethelene, for your part of the presentation. My name is Kevin Hartshey. I am the Director for the Account Statements and Audit Unit. And today I'm going to be going over the final section of this presentation titled Remarks. So for this section, we're going to be showing important information which cannot be found anywhere else on the statement. And so this is what we want to do. We want to be able to draw your attention to the remarks for that reason. So in this next section, we're going to describe all the types of scenarios that you might see in the remarks, and just to further emphasize that this is where you're going to find pertinent information that can't be found anywhere else on the statement. So on this screenshot, you'll notice some examples of remarks. I have 3 different screenshots of different account statements here showing different scenarios. The top scenario shows what remarks look like if a case has undisbursed collections. The middle screenshot shows remarks if a case has over-disbursed collections. And the final bottom screenshot shows a situation where we have unassignment of arrears on an account. And we're going to go into further detail on what each one of those entails. And we're going to start off by going through some of the key challenges with these scenarios. So let's see on the next page. Okay, so we're going to start with undisbursed collections. This top screenshot shows an account that's actually currently overpaid by $573. Before I get into that, let's describe what an undisbursed collection is. Undisbursed collections are payments that are collected but have not yet been disbursed to the custodial parent, have not yet been disbursed to another jurisdiction, or have not yet been refunded to the non-custodial parent. So, as I mentioned, it's not clear just from looking at the statement what the situation on the account is, especially when it comes to undisbursed funds. It's important to read the remarks, because just by looking at this, just because you see a statement that shows an overpaid balance, that doesn't necessarily mean that that money is undisbursed. And so that's why it's important to verify whether or not that's the case by looking at the remarks section. So for the top example, you will see in the remarks, it does state that $573 is currently undisbursed on the account. So that does mean that the case is overpaid that much, and we are holding those funds on the account. The bottom statement, it shows an amount delinquent of $2,000 roughly. And if you look at the remarks section, it shows that even though there is an arrears balance, there is also currently $1,325 of undisbursed funds on this account. And so when we come across a situation like this, it's important, again, to read the remarks, because if there is an arrears balance with money undisbursed, that undisbursed money could be due to several factors. And so we will state in the remarks what the specific factor is for the case and what's holding the money on the account. And for a situation like this, the reason it's important for magistrates to look at that, on this bottom example, it shows that the reason the money is undisbursed is because we don't have the correct address for the custodial parent. We're pending address verification. So that means whatever address we have on file is not the correct address. And that address will also be on the cover letter on the first page of the account statement that you receive, or on the second page, I believe. And so we ask that you take a look at that information on the cover sheet, and if you discover that there is a discrepancy with the custodial parent's address, that you notify us and you put that information on file so that we can update our account and have those funds dispersed to the custodial parent. Okay, the next challenge we're going to go over is undisbursed collections. So what is undisbursed collections? Undisbursed collections are payments that are collected but have not yet been disbursed. Oh, I'm sorry, over-disbursed accounts we're discussing. Over-disbursed accounts is where the custodial parent received more than the non-custodial parent ultimately paid. So in this particular case, that's what happened. If you look at the remarks, you'll notice that the case was actually over-disbursed by $801. And so what does that mean? Well, if you look at the delinquent amount, if you're only looking at the delinquent amount of $10,000, it's going to look like that $10,000 is owed entirely to the party, the client or the DSS. But if you look in the remarks, you'll notice that because the account was over-disbursed, $801 of that total delinquent amount is actually owed to OCSS. It's owed to the Office of Child Support Services to recoup that over-disbursed payment. So the remarks will clarify that even though this account statement shows $10,000 is owed to the custodial parent, actually only $9,500 is owed to the custodial parent, and the remaining balance is owed to the Office of Child Support to recoup money that was over-disbursed. And so the reason that we want to draw your attention to this is because if you do notice this situation on an account, we do ask that you set that as an arrears balance to DSS, because when there are over-disbursed funds like this on an account and the money is owed to Office of Child Support, those arrears are unenforceable without an order. So that's why we are asking that if this does get presented in court, that maybe those arrears get reduced, that balance gets reduced to an arrears owed to DSS, so this way it can be collected and enforced on. This next challenge, challenge 3, is titled Unassignment of Arrears. And what is it? The unassignment of arrears is the amount of child support arrears allocated to DSS exceeds the benefits that the client received. So whatever the total amount of DSS arrears are, if the client received more benefits than that, what happens is that difference will automatically get reassigned to the custodial parent. And an account statement cannot show this unassignment of arrears. We don't have an option to select something to reflect that on the account statement. Therefore, the only option we have is to include this information in the remarks. So that's why for unassignment of arrears situations, the remarks will state what the actual amounts owed are to the custodial parent and what the actual amounts owed are to DSS. So in this particular example, we have an example of a split beneficiary account where the account reflects a delinquent amount of $6,000 owed to the custodial parent and $19,000 owed to DSS. However, the remarks clarify that there were arrears that were unassigned from DSS and reassigned to the CP. Therefore, the actual amount owed to the CP is $9,000 and the actual amount owed to DSS is $15,000. So it does differ from what the figures on the account statement say if there are unassignment of arrears, and that difference will be stated in the remarks. So we ask that you look at the remarks to know specifically what amount of money is owed and to who. Okay, the next challenge, challenge 4, is no ACS versus ACS. So really quickly, ACS stands for Account Creation Summary. It's the primary document that is used by us at SU to update an account with a court order. And only orders with financial information will generate an ACS. So there are many documents that do not generate an ACS. One of those documents that does not generate an ACS is an order of dismissal. This is because many times an order of dismissal does not have financial impacts on an account. However, sometimes it does have a financial impact on the account. So here we have an example of an order of dismissal that did have a financial impact on the case. The account was charging based on an order of support dated November 27, 2012. A petition on this case was filed in October 4, 2013 to modify the existing order of support. The first appearance resulted in an order suspending the order of support, and the case was adjourned for a few months later. And the follow-up appearance resulted in an order of dismissal. So this order of dismissal did not include any language indicating that the temporary order of support was vacated or terminated and the prior order of support was reinstated. So because an order of dismissal generally does not generate an ACS, we were never alerted to the fact that this case should have begun charging again as of the order of dismissal date. And we only recently discovered this, and when we do discover these types of issues, generally it results in having to apply extensive arrears back onto the account. Okay, so now let's take a look at another similar example. Okay, in this example, we have another order of dismissal, and like the previous example, it's just an order of dismissal, but on this order, this order of dismissal vacated a temporary modification, and the order of support was thereby reinstated to the prior order of support. And for this particular order, an ACS was generated, which you see on the right, and because of this, SCU was alerted to the fact that the prior order of support was reinstated and that we should begin charging the account again at this prior amount. So we do ask that you help us by including language that makes it clear if there is a temporary modification of the order of support and that temporary modification is either vacated or terminated or a prior order is reinstated, that you please notify the court clerk, because I believe it's the court clerk that generates the ACSs, and just let them know that this information needs to be on an ACS and we need to create an ACS for this order. This is the fastest way that it can make us aware of important financial information on a case. Okay, this next section we're going to discuss situations where you might have a case that contains multiple account statements for one case. And we're going to go over 2 different scenarios of why that might be. Okay, the first scenario is a CAN change. A CAN change is a unique temporary assistance case number that's assigned to a family when they receive assistance. For our unit, this number is important because each CAN number tracks the temporary assistance benefits received by the custodial parent that should be reimbursed by the non-custodial parent's payments received on the account. Okay, so when we have multiple CANs, this is when we have multiple accounts. A multiple CAN situation can happen if a child goes off of cash assistance on the first CAN, and then the custodial parent reapplies for cash assistance, and when she reapplies for this cash assistance, she's assigned a totally new CAN. In this situation, OCSS must open a completely new account. It'll be a linked account, but it has to be a separate account. Even though it's the same parties involved and it's the same case, we need to have separate accounts reflecting the separate CAN charges. It's important to note, though, that OCSS is not charging actively on both accounts. One account in this scenario will remain open only to collect the DSS arrears owed under the first CAN, and then the other account will be the actively charging account, charging to DSS for the new CAN activity, and it will also carry what's owed to the custodial parent. In this example, it's indicated in the remarks that the account statement on the left is not actively charging and is open only to collect the arrears owed to DSS. And in the account statement on the right, it's indicated in the remarks that this account is actively charging. So in the CAN changes, we'll explicitly state that in the remarks to show you this is only remaining open to collect these remaining arrears, and this account is the active charging account reflecting these arrears. And so again, that's why it's important to check the remarks to be certain of who's owed what money and under what account. And the next scenario that we have where you might have multiple account statements is when you have a redirect account, which I'll explain what that is. So another reason why you might receive multiple statements is if there are multiple child support jurisdictions involved. So the way we do it in New York is anytime New York will build an account for each jurisdiction to track any charges owed and any payments sent to that jurisdiction. So in this example, we see in the remarks that the account statement on the left is a local New York City account that's no longer charging, but it still reflects arrears. And if the NCP owes New York City DSS arrears, then the local account will reflect that. In the account statement on the right, we see from the remarks that this account is reflecting the other jurisdiction's charges and payments. Any relevant information about this case will also be stated in the remarks section. And the remarks section will give important details that will help you accurately determine the correct amount owed to New York City DSS and owed to the other jurisdiction. We have next page is additional scenarios. In this section, we're going to highlight a few common scenarios and clarify what the remarks mean for these scenarios. And we'll also discuss some ways in which you may be able to help us ensure a case is accurate with the most up-to-date information. Thank you. Okay, so one of these additional scenarios is DSS Debt Reduction. New York City OCSS has several programs to help and non-custodial parents reduce the amount of permanently assigned arrears owed to New York City DSS. When a non-custodial parent has successfully completed one of these DSS debt reduction programs, the account statement will reflect this credit in both the payment and the remarks section. And in this example, you'll see in Section A, the payments, it does show under other adjustments that a $5,000 credit was applied. And further down on the remarks section, you'll see it explains that this other adjustment was made due to the non-custodial parent qualifying the reduction program. Okay, retroactive actions. So NPT retroactive actions, I'm sorry. What is an NPT retroactive action? And what does this look like on an account statement? So if an NCP pays regularly and these payments are already dispersed to the custodial parent, an NPT downward modification, NPT retroactive downward modification, it might result in an overpayment because of this. So in this example, the non-custodial parent, we see this is exactly what happened. The non-custodial parent was making regular support payments in accordance with the lawfully active court order charging at the time, and all payments were being dispersed to the client, and the non-custodial parent was staying current with his charges and his arrears. And soon after, the court issued a retroactive downward modification, which resulted in an overpayment on the account. So when this happens, we will reflect this overpayment in the payment section as an other adjustment to the petitioner, and as well as being reflected in the remarks section explaining this. And we just want to make you aware that if a payment has already been dispersed, that we are not able to reimburse any overpayment resulting from this. Once the payment has gone to the custodial parent, it's already dispersed, and we cannot refund anybody or reimburse the payments.